Has anybody seen Tricker? It's his mother, and I miss him. Come home, Tricker.
Hey folks, Rob here from the Air Combat Sim Podcast. I am here with Brian and Tony, who I was fortunate enough to meet at the Flight Sim Expo in Houston last month. And they were kind enough to join me today to talk about what they do, what their experience was at the expo, and about a number of other things. So, welcome, guys.
Hey,
Good
hey.
afternoon, Rob.
So, starting out, why don't you guys tell me a little bit about yourselves? Now, you guys live in Houston, right?
We
Yes,
do.
sir.
Yeah. Yeah, in separate houses, for
In,
the record. Thankfully.
as far as we know,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Actually, I call, so there's about four or five of us who know each other for about a quarter century, and I call us the hive mind because we all kind of, do some of the same stuff online too. So, Brian, you want to go ahead? You're kind of an original, you're an OG Houstonian, so go ahead.
All right. Hi, my name's Brian Albaugh. I've been a flight sim enthusiast since 1982. So I go all the way back to Bruce Artwork's Sublogic Flight Simulator on the Apple IIe and Commodore 64. I was a big fan of Microprose and Janes in the 90s, and I even still have the 4.0 manual and the three-ring binder. And in 2001, Tony got me started playing IL2 multiplayer. That's when it really started, and we played IL2 off and on for a decade or so. And then DCS came out, and I started playing with the A10C. I played off and on, but I really didn't get into DCS until I joined the Virtual Armed Forces Squadron in 2017, and there I was able to get support, training, learn how to use the systems. Great group of guys, love flying with them, and now I basically spend 95% of my time on the multiplayer flying with our guys on the server, and we use Discord to communicate, and in the sim we'll use SRS, and we fly missions, campaigns, and we train folks. Um, and we have a great time doing it, and it's a lot of fun.
Are you in the aviation related field or
I'm
kind
a
of?
I'm actually a an engineer. I work in infrastructure, and but I my real passion was airplanes and aviation and history. I took history as electives in college, and
Mhm.
um, but my eyes weren't good, so big
No,
military historian on this side as a hobby too, and I love aviation, and the stories and the people are great.
tell us about yourself.
Yeah, and then some. So I've been wanting to be a soldier since I was about 3 years old, since I knew what it was. Didn't really know what I wanted to do. I just knew I wanted to be in the army or the military. I thought about being a pilot. I was like Brian. I was right there when flight simulation became accessible to mere mortals back in the oh gosh, like the early '80s. I had a Commodore 64 like Brian with a tape drive flight sim that
Oh,
was awesome, and I would wear my dad's motorcycle helmet because it was like a flight helmet. It was like 11 or 12 years old. It was really cool. I loved that. Did all that. Did Apache on the Commodore 64 when it came out, and the IBM. That was so cool. And then, like Brian, he mentioned a couple of just milestone sims. I did a lot of those as well. Joined the military in 1988 at the very end of the Cold War. Was actually in Germany when the wall kind of started to come down. That was really cool to kind of see some history happening right in front of me. I originally was a combat engineer, then I became a tanker, and I was a tanker, loved it for, oh God, about 15 years.
mm,
Became a cavalry scout, which is a little bit different, but kind of the same thing. And then decided to try my hand at being an officer. I was a senior NCO, became an officer, and finished out for about 10 more years, retired as a captain. While I was in the Army, I went to Germany. Obviously, I was in Bosnia in 2000. I went to Iraq in '05. Brian met me right after I got back from Bosnia, and we were just kind of messing around. We were a friend of a friend and started playing IL2 one day. So he actually probably sent me 15 care packages, him and all my buddies over the years. So he burned up a lot of. I've eaten a lot of Girl Scout cookies and watched a bunch of pirated DVDs thanks to him and some friends of mine. Went
you
to
mean the
Iraq
legal
twice.
ones though,
2000.
right?
Yeah, perfectly. Yeah, not the ones, not the illegal ones. Because there's no black market stuff overseas. at
We're
all.
not going to talk about when I sent you the paste pecani sauce from Texas and you got sick for
Oh
three
my
days, is it?
God, yeah, that's a whole other. Yeah, that went on. Yeah, I had to go see the medics for that one, but that was my fault, not Brian's. Did two tours in Iraq, one in '05 and one in 2010. Never was a pilot. Flew in the back of a ton of aircraft. My very last flight out of Iraq, coming out of a C-130 that was built in 1965, and the two port side engines went down because they had bad fuel, and the crew chief's like, "Nah, it's okay. We got two more." And I was just getting home to see my son for the first time. I was like, and he was like, "Oh yeah, we can land in the desert." And I said, "Chief, the desert looks nice and smooth from 30,000 feet. From when you're down close, it's like it's not nice and smooth. You better land on the highway." And so they're like, "Oh, okay, good to know." But anyway, so I was always kind of the guy in back. I went in lots of helicopter rides, lots of different fixed wing, just because I just happened to be lucky and the guy who wanted to go. Brian really got into, and we flew IL-2 for, oh God, 10 years. Had a great time. We're very much at the forefront of the precursor to like track IR and a lot of that thrustmaster stuff. And then I kind of got out of it a little. I didn't really get out of it, but I did some other stuff and had some kids. And then about
And I had some
probably what
kids.
about yeah, I had some kids. There was a couple of life events in there, but always kind of enjoyed it, and always kind of did it. But then Brian, we really got back into it probably 7 or 8 months ago, and Brian had been really into it for about 10 years. He was always trying to kind of get me back into it, and so I got a. He actually, what happened was he lent me his Thrustmaster joystick, and I was like, son of a gun, because I had CH product stuff for years, which I love, and nothing against CH product stuff. It's amazingly good. It lasts forever. But as far as the finesse, the viability, and the VR really made the immersion just unbelievable. And so that's kind of where we're at. So now I used to be a better pilot than he was. Now Brian far surpasses me.
That's
We just flew this morning, and if it's the same aircraft, and once he gets on my butt, it's I'm just trying to survive. I usually just fly him to the ground or something like that. So I got a ways to go before I can catch up to him. So
Well,
anyway,
it's the training I got from the guys I fly with. So
yeah. Well, and
yeah,
I mean, I'm not an official member yet with VAF. I am like I don't know, auxiliary member,
guest.
so I don't have. Yeah, I'm a guest. Yeah, so I get on there and mess around, but they're definitely a lot more hardcore. I want to fly around, shoot people down, blow stuff up. They want to like flip all the switches and do the 20-minute startup, and I'm like, just hit the auto start button. Let's go.
Eh,
Yeah.
the
So
engineer comes out and it's Tony, where we're but it's more relaxed. It's not
yeah,
formal.
it's
Yeah.
not. Yeah, it's not. Yeah, it's definitely a ton of fun, and you learn so much so fast with it. So one thing that Brian had always done, and I have always done, a lot of people do that. You get together on something new, and if you're learning together, you're learning four times as fast because you're just
mm,
bouncing ideas off
yep.
of each other constantly. So anyway, so that's kind of our history.
I actually have another. We're going to get together later and talk about virtual Air Force. Can you guys tell me a little bit about that now?
Sure. So we're a group of guys, and we don't have rank or anything, and we have instructor pilots, and we have 4 blocks that you go through for the basic flying, and you learn how to fly formation, and then there's an air-to-ground unit block 5 and block 6 for air-to-air that's specific to your primary airframe that you're going to fly. So
Hmm.
people tend to focus on one airframe so they can get really good at that airframe. We have scheduled missions. We schedule training once a week, and we work on things. There's so much to learn. And with the F-15, when that came out, everybody was playing around with the F-15, and we're learning that aircraft, and it's great. You can just ask somebody, hey, how do you do this? And they'll tell you. And everybody's supportive of each other. And sometimes we get on and we're just visiting, people just checking in and shooting the bull. So we have a lot of time. And a lot of us, since we're busy with our lives, wouldn't be playing DCS as much unless it was for that multiplayer and us getting together, the support with the flying with the guys, and it's mutual
Yep.
support on missions. It is so much fun. We have a really good time with it.
Yeah. No, that's really really cool.
I spent half my life talking on the radio and listening to Brian and his buddies play. They're it's not overly, it's not unnecessarily controlling. They're very, very practical about their communication and the skills that they do. Like for instance, Brian. I always kind of make fun of Brian. Like, look, you get excited when you do a really cool landing or a trap or something like that, or a
Mm-hmm.
refueling mission. Okay, I could shoot down 20 guys, and I don't get as excited as you do when you like have a refueling mission. But it's like if you can do the fundamentals that well, fighting the aircraft is actually not that big of a deal. That's just such a big chaotic thing that if you've got those basic skills, those system, that switchology, those systems, that the guy, if, and especially with coordination, even just 2 on 1. I mean, as we've learned in the military, hey, when you put two guys together in a fight, you don't double their combat effectiveness. It's 4 times as effective. Well, these guys are running 3 on 3s and three ship formations, and they're doing really, really well. So it's a lot of fun to listen to them. And I learn stuff every minute that they're talking, and I thought I knew stuff. I don't know anything. These guys are really squirting. So it's a lot of fun to listen to them.
That's really
Yeah,
cool. I mean,
we
oh, go ahead.
oh, I was just gonna say it's a lot of fun. We have some IPs that are really good at the air to air and the timeline, the BVR timeline, and it gives you a great appreciation of how much practice you have to do because things happen so fast in the air to air. It is just
Some of the guys are real world pilots, real world former airframe flyers, or real world supporters, right, Brian?
yeah. I enjoy the multi crew the best in Home Fries. He's an NFO and we'll be yelling at each other over the intercom. We have so much fun. And one little sidebar story was that Home Fries was in the front seat, I was in the back, and I was trying to work the radar and playing chess back there. And he told me to go to VSI high. And I asked him, I said, well, what's the macro? What's the button for it? You know, is it TMS up, TMS right, CMS right? And so we were merged, and he goes, how in the heck should I know? And I yelled back and I said, because you're the ones that helped me set up my controls. I have the same mappings you do. And then after that, we bonded as a crew.
It's cool to hear about for me, I look at it as a fun hobby, but at the end of the day, to your point, it's really tough to find the time to actually get together and do it, at least for me. So it's really cool to hear that and to hear the camaraderie that you guys have. So it's pretty neat.
Yeah, and one
The
thing
thing we've really
if
been getting.
oh sorry,
Go ahead,
Tony.
Brian.
I was just gonna say, like, I'll look at my phone and I'll see on Discord that there's a couple guys on the server. Well, I hadn't planned to fly, and it's like, hmm, I'll go sneak up and go jump on. And all of a sudden, we have an impromptu, and one of my favorites is Throwback Thursday, where we either do Cold War or World War II.
Mm.
And we got some great mission builders. Deacon and Montrose, those two guys, the missions they put up. Deacon just did one on Sinai, so it's like 1972, and it's a blast to go in.
So
So I mean,
the one we were doing, I guess it was right around when the convention came out. Uh, Rob, the episode when you guys just did with the Enigma guys,
Hmm.
that was the best episode I've heard yet. I called Brian. We were having lunch. I said, Brian, you got to listen to this episode. And I knew about Enigma server. Those guys, as you guys obviously know, they are at the bleeding edge of what is capable with DCS.
Yep.
Um, I mean, it's absolutely amazing what they're doing. Uh, I mean, amazing, but it almost shouldn't be amazing. It's like, look, there's lots of other games that have got that kind of level of dedication. But as you know, Rob, flight sim guys and gals are relatively very small population, but extremely hardcore. Like one of the things I had no idea that existed when I went until I went to the flight sim was VATSIM. I'm like, what are you
yeah.
talking about? These guys are nuts. They sit around and do ATC. Oh my god! And they are really. I mean, it was amazing
Well,
watching these
go into that
guys
for a
play
second
that
because
stuff.
I didn't get to spend as much time as I think you guys did because I.
So I know very, very little about it from the maybe the 10 minutes. I mean, it
Yeah.
almost overwhelmed me. But at Lone Star Flight, so VATSIM is, and please, if somebody's going to listening, you're going to get comments say, "Hey, you got it wrong." I totally apologize. All right, Virtual Air Traffic Simulation is what VATSIM stands for. Basically, with something like say Microsoft, where you can get in and fly Microsoft Flight Sim in real time. You can actually have people who in real time are your air traffic controllers, and they can give you air traffic controls as you're coming into real or virtual environments, and say, hey, they give you that air traffic control experience, and they're really good at it. I mean, really good. So instead of having an automated voice, you're logged in, you're flying along, and you could have somebody on VATSIM say, hey, this is blah blah blah, but up bubba whatever, go ahead and turn, what. And I don't know anything about ATC, but they'll give you real world directions in the simulated world. And I mean, you talk about immersion. I mean, you're talking to a real person on the other side. There was a whole room, big conference room,
Hmm.
filled with people with laptops and headsets, and they're just all in there doing VATSIM at the same time. They could all be doing it at home, and they all just got together and did it. It's just like playing, whatever. A lot of
Yep.
people play role playing games now together, even though they could do it remotely. But when you're there in front of somebody with 50 other people doing the same thing, that combination of connection
Yep.
and just geeking out together, I mean, it blew my mind. I mean, it was just like, wow, these people are crazy
Yeah.
and weird and wonderful. Just absolutely
Well,
wonderful.
it's
So
interesting.
cool.
It's a good segue to the expo, by the way. So,
Hmm.
but
I planned that. Thank
yeah,
you very much.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it. It was funny though because it, I live in Austin, so for me, I
Hmm.
had to drive over there, and 3 hours, and got to and stayed with my brother and sister in law, and then just went in. But it was fascinating to me because it I just had no idea. So just going to the expo itself, I knew it was there. I had heard Tricker say that he had gone last year, I think in Orlando, but he
Hmm.
didn't, but to me it was like, man, I had no idea. And while it was interesting because for the most part I'd say it was, and you guys check me on this because you probably saw more than I did, is I thought it was 80% commercial airline flight sim
All right.
stuff,
Yeah.
and then about
Yeah.
20% maybe on the combat flight sim stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
And then it was more it was peppered in different places rather than
Yeah. Sure.
being more aggregated together.
Well, and I don't know if you noticed, to speak to that kind of, Rob, it was probably, by my guess, 60% not U.S.
Yeah.
Tons of European. There's. I lived in Poland when I was a kid. I heard more Polish there than I've heard since I was in Warsaw.
Mm.
Tons of Germans. Obviously, very sad that I know the Russian people are hugely into flight sims, just like they are hugely into simulations in general. And I know that they weren't as well represented as they should be, but the rest of Eastern Europe and Central Europe was very well represented. So that was pretty neat. I'd always kind of heard that,
Hmm.
but to see how many of those companies, and these are 2, 3 person small little firms,
Yeah.
but lots of folks from Germany, the Scandinavia, France. I
Yeah.
mean, obviously, aviation's an internationals. Internationals is going
Coming soon on ACS, Casmo, Tricker, Baltic, and myself will be doing a roundtable discussion and a review of the latest WinWing F-15E grip and an Orion throttle base. Thanks to WinWing for providing the gear for us to review. While Baltic's gear is stuck in custom, Casmo's already posted his personal review, so make sure you check it out on YouTube. And if you're looking for deep dive military aviation content, be sure to check out Authentic Media on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Acast. Familiar hosts such as Sunshine Crunch and Casmo host deep dive discussions into carrier aviation, test pilot topics, and the F 22 balloon shootdowns. So check it out.